Hey everybody, welcome to JandJonJazz, powered by Jazzwire. I'm James, and of course, this is my friend Jeff.
Hey everybody, good to see you. We want to talk today about essentially, YouTube and videos, and there's all this great information out there, right? I mean, we can't deny that there's incredible information online on the internet, and of course, videos on YouTube and elsewhere. But we're on YouTube, so we shouldn't say elsewhere, right? I take that back, James, not elsewhere. I've done hundreds of these videos on YouTube, and I really think there's some value. I hope you find value in what James and I do here. But it's extremely limited, and that's something we want to talk about today. The idea that we're broadcasting to you, right? We're broadcasting. You could be an absolute beginner. You may know nothing about jazz. You may be a pro. You may be a high school band director. You may have a PhD in jazz, and you're teaching at that level. And we do have all those folks that watch this, or that watch Digging Deeper Jazz, or who belong to Jazzwire. So the trick is, when we're talking, the question is are we talking to you, right? And the answer is we're not. We're talking to some mystical creature out there, and we're hoping the information makes sense to you. We're hoping you take some action on it. We have no idea if you're going to. I'm sure you have good intentions, but are you going to take action? Not sure. Are you going to understand it? Are you going to follow through? The issue is that it's a one-way communication, right? And real teaching, real communication requires two-way, back and forth, right? James, that's got to be your experience as both a teacher and as a student, right?
Absolutely. There is a back and forth that's critical. There's also an accountability factor that is irreplaceable.
Yep.
I'll give an example outside of music. A number of years ago, when I was in much better physical shape than I am now, one of the reasons for that is that I was fortunate enough to be working weekly with a really great trainer. And so I could lift what he told me to lift and do what he told me to do from anywhere. But having that accountability of having the trainer there saying, push one more rep out, or let's try this because I'm looking at you in real time, or I'm looking at a video of you that I would send him, if I was on the road, and I was getting feedback, accountability and feedback. So those are two things that we can't give you right now, and we're glad you're watching, but exactly. Yeah, so long answer to your question. Are you right, Jeff? Yes.
Well, perfect answer. And of course, I can ask you the question, would you have made those gains without that accountability? The answer is
no, because I've lost them. They're gone. That's why I keep wearing sweaters. They're gone.
There you go. Understood. Well, and of course, we all know that, right? You can have a friend who's a therapist, and you can talk to your friend, but that ain't therapy, right?
Dig it.
It's not. You can read WebMD, but that's not the same as going to a doctor, right? So I just really want to
that's great.
Compel you folks to take that next step, because if you're watching two knuckleheads like us talking about jazz, I would think you have better stuff to do, but maybe not. You love this music. You want to get better. You're intrigued by what happens beneath the scenes. You're intrigued by how to take that next step, right? And us showing you a lick, us talking about how to taper notes, and that you should give that a try yourself. It's not going to get you there, right? So when I built Jazzwire, for instance, that's the subscription website that I do. The most important thing with Jazzwire is that I hear every one of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that have been in Jazzwire. You send in 2 recordings of yourself. Now, I know that's a little bit nerve-wracking for some people, but that's how it has to work that way. Nobody can be taught if I don't hear you first, right? James can't teach someone unless he knows, what are we working with? How are you articulating? What's your tone? Can you get out of the staff? Like all those things, right? So when we hear somebody, now I can give you feedback. And the word in that sentence that counts is you, right? I'm giving you feedback, not random whoever on the internet. So can we get good information on the internet? And James, I'd love to know what you think. I think, yeah. Hey, here's a cool Nicholas Payton lick. This is what it looks like. This is what it sounds like. Go. But again,
Right, I agree. Sorry, I thought when you said go, you wanted me to start. So, yes, you can get good information on the internet, and you know, I'm going to start giving more shout outs now that we're in 2022 as we do these. A dear friend of mine, the great trombonist Dr. Emmett Goods, who's a faculty member at University of Rhode Island. I remember 10 years ago we were talking on a gig in Pittsburgh one time, and he said, I forget how we got on the subject, but somebody had just seen a video on YouTube, and Emmett said, yo man, YouTube is how jazz musicians waste time. And he didn't mean that in a bad way. I think jazz musicians were early adopters of this platform because all of a sudden, all these videos that we used to clamor to find, like if somebody had these European DVDs pirated from all the great things that were over there, you know, you could see these performances, and now all of a sudden they're right at your fingertips. So
Yep.
the sheer volume of great stuff that's out there on YouTube is mind-boggling. The challenge is, what do you do with it, right?
Yep.
And that's where a community like Jazzwire, I think, is really important, because if you're not able to get the kind of feedback and guidance from a teacher in person, Jazzwire is not just a substitute; it's the real deal. And Jeff doesn't pay me to say that. But I mention it because it's knowing how to sift through all the information that's out there is what you need a guide for, and you need to be part of a community for that. I'll give you an example. So, for years, I had been a fan of Clark Terry. I've talked about him a lot on these things, and I was talking to a buddy of mine last night, and he was watching this video of a great Clark Terry solo that we've all nerded out on for a long time. I made this discovery a couple of years ago that some of the ways that CT uses the plunger, he's actually changing pitches, bending and using the plunger. And my man thought that he was changing pitches with the valve. And I was able to hip him to the fact that, no, actually, you watch this video, you can't see Clark's fingers because of the way the video is shot. All you can see is his bell and the plunger. But, let's see, I'm trying to remember the lick. Here it is. Hear that pitch going down a half step, and you can see my fingers aren't moving. I always knew he was using the plunger. My buddy thought he was going. And so, without somebody to kind of guide you through some of these things, you can either get wrong information or you don't get the whole story. So again, I think of things sometimes on a micro level. Jeff's great at thinking things on a macro level. So that's one example of, like, that video is great, but there's information there that you need somebody to help you get deeper inside of. Does that make sense?
It does. And, you know, on the internet, like, everybody's sort of an autodidact these days. We sort of teach ourselves. My dishwasher's broken, so I go on YouTube and I learn how to fix my dishwasher, right? There are some things that can be fine. However, playing jazz and fixing a dishwasher are slightly different, right?
Right.
Just here to tell you. So, and so one of the things you were talking about, huge issue, is the sheer amount of information out there. It needs to be curated. That's the word I'm using all the time, curated, right? What are what are the 10,000 things you need to ignore, and what's the one thing for you today? So, right, so when I'm teaching students, I don't teach 10 students the same lesson just because that's what I'm thinking about this week. 10 students have 10 totally different issues, right? And so on Jazzwire, the way we have this set up, even though it's an online situation, I'm hearing people play, and they're hearing personally from me 7 days a week, and the rest of the faculty, Steve Herberman on guitar and on and on. So, so I just really want to make that point here. That all this information out there, all the PDF packs that you can, watch so-and-so's video and order the PDFs, that's cool, but that ain't it. That's not it. That's not what I got from 8 years of college. That's not what I got from the University of North Texas, is books and PDF packs. What I got is a community, hanging with musicians at my level, getting my butt handed to me, coming back tomorrow and trying again and getting more feedback, right? And so that's, so when we built Jazzwire, James, that was really the idea of mimicking that in the real world, and how do we do it online? So I think there's only a handful of places, in the world that do an online thing the way we do it. And so I think it's important. That's why I want people to come into the free trial and really get a sense of what it feels like, what it looks like. You get a sense of where people are playing. You're going to find people who are novices, probably playing below your level, folks that are just getting going in jazz, all the way up to people that, they could be playing with a pro band. You would not know that they don't do this for a living. So it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Well, and Jeff, I just want to say to folks that, does Jeff make money when you sign up and pay the subscription? Duh. Yes, that's right. He does. You should pay him for his time. I'm not a paid spokesperson. Like I'm talking about this because I believe in it, and I'm not, because of my day job as a college administrator, which is very rewarding. I don't get to cruise Jazzwire as much as I'd like. Believe me, I wish I could live in there and hang in there, because when I am able to get in there and engage with folks, and it's such a meaningful experience. And the pandemic, I think, has really made me understand the value of a community like this. I may have been skeptical 5 years ago, or even pre-COVID. I may have been skeptical of something like that. But I've seen and met players inside Jazzwire and in Maryland Summer and Winter Jazz, and I've gotten to see them develop over the course of a couple workshops, and it's like it's real, man. So I love that idea that when you said things need to be curated. My great friend Joey Tartell, who's a wonderful trumpet teacher at Indiana University, an amazing lead player, jazz player, all those things, he says he's a real stickler about, he scours the internet for bad information, so he knows what people are seeing. He's real big on. There's a lot of bad stuff out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there in the music,
totally.
and so the community is it's almost like that's where the validity of that kind of information can be checked. Almost, you see it, you think it might be real, and 20 other people are now going to vet that idea if you're part of a community, So
Yep.
I think that's critical.
No, that's perfectly put. So for those of you that are still out there listening, think about anything you've done meaningful in your life. Think about those big things you've learned, those big lessons. They weren't from a self-help book. The self-help book may have got you started, but then you went into the world, right, and connected with other people to get that thing happening. So I think we can leave it there. I'm going to get off my soapbox. I can't believe I've balanced up here for this long, but I feel so passionate about it because I know this works. You're telling me the same thing from a different angle, and I think everybody out there really understands that too. So for those of you that really want to push ahead in a big way, a meaningful way, the way Popeye over there when he built those big biceps working out with his trainer, when you want to get those kind of results, what you need to do is get in the room with a real person. I'd love that to be Jazzwire, but wherever you do it, I want you to do it. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. James, that was great, man. I appreciate the perspective.
Yep, absolutely. Everybody have fun out there scouring the interwebs and the YouTubes.
Take care.